All right, so that's quite a turnout. That's I'm very happy about it, but also very nervous. So forgive me if that's going to be worse than you thought it would be. Um, but I think first things first, because we're doing. Should I introduce myself? Yeah. Okay. Um, I'm Anna. I'm head of growth at SaaS Group, one of the companies Tobias Slotke was talking about. We buy successful SaaS businesses and we grow them to hopefully the next level. Here's one of our beloved brands, Tower. Julian is a co-founder, so we'll talk about that, how you got to sell to us at some point. But I'm also the host of SaaS Unbound podcast. If you've never heard of it, maybe that's your cue. Go there. I've interviewed most of them here, so you can also learn more about their companies. So this is Tech Entrepreneur Stories, and we thought a lot of devs know how to build their companies, how to build their products, right? But that a company is a bit of a different story, and a lot of developers start with bootstrapping, and it would be great to just get it out of the way, like what would be the challenges, the pros and cons of bootstrapping at different stages. So here we go. Maybe we'll start with a bit of introductions, right? Sora, start with you. Turn it. Yeah, it's on.
Should I talk louder? No? Should I can also talk very loud.
Do it. Okay, while we're at it, maybe who is here a founder? Anybody? Anybody? A founder? Bootstrapped? Okay. All right. All right. So this one is for you.
Okay, it works now.
Go.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Sora. I'm the co-founder and CTO of vollefarben, and we are a diversity marketplace. My background is actually from cloud IT consultancy, and a year ago I started our company vollefarben with my co-founder. And no, we're here. I don't know what else to say.
Okay,
and I'm
good.
from Hamburg. Yeah, maybe that's also interesting to know. Yeah.
Antoine.
Hey, does it work? Yeah, mine works. Hi, I'm Antoine. I was born and raised in France, but I live in Hamburg now for the past 7 years. I have a bit of a funny story. I don't know if a lot of people
we like funny.
Know this, but I'm working a part-time job at a big tech company from the US, Yelp, 4 days a week, and I'm also running 2 companies, bootstrap companies, on the side. So if you want to learn more about this, you can come to my talk tomorrow, 2 p.m. Yeah, I think that's it.
Sure, but what are your companies?
Oh yeah, sure. That's a good,
Maybe
that's a
a
good
little
detail
bit.
to add. So I'm running Improv MX, email forwarding company. So it's an infra company that helps you forward emails with very advanced techniques, etc., to create vanity email addresses. And then I'm also running a customer support tool for modern SaaS businesses called Fernand. This is just new. It's a bit of our biggest bet now. If you know Linear or Superbase or Atio, all these cool modern companies that are trying to do something else with like incredible load times, great UI, etc. Keyboard for shortcuts for everything. We are going, or we are trying to be that for customer support.
Thank you, Bridget.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Bridget Harris. I'm the co-founder and CEO of You Can Book Me, which is an online scheduling tool. We've been bootstrapping for a long time. In fact, shameless pitch, I'm talking about it tomorrow afternoon at 3 o'clock. 10 lessons on bootstrapping, because we've been doing it for, well, we've been running a business for about 12 years, but we've been building products. As Anna said, there's a difference between building a product and bootstrapping it into a business and then a company for 20 years. So I'm here to talk about that journey. We've got to about 5 million euros ARR now, and there's lots and lots of lessons along the way that I'm very happy to share with you all.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Julian. I'm one of the co-founders of Tower. Tower is a developer tool. Maybe some of you know it. It's a Git client for Mac and Windows. We bootstrapped the business. We started in 2010, then ran the company for 11 years, and then sold the company to SAS Group in 2021. And now I'm part of SAS Group, moved to the group level, and there work as a brand CMO. And yeah, so I'm probably last in line here because I can share a bit what it's like to then actually sell a business when you bootstrap it.
Yeah, and how easy it is, right? And maybe, maybe you found our little postcards. So SAS Group and the brands that we love came up with a few deals for you to help you pick it up and work on your project. So if you go through the QR code, we fixed it this morning, so it should work. All right. Well, I guess we'll start with like the decision, the ultimate decision. How did you come to bootstrapping? Like, why? Because I mean, some of you have started companies when it was virtually easier to raise funds, right? So why did you decide to still pursue this track? So let's.
So we decided to bootstrap last year, actually. Mm-hmm. So since we're a diversity marketplace, diversity isn't as sexy for the investors. So we kind of pitched to a lot of investors, and we kind of saw that the topic itself was not really one that is very popular, or that is something that they're looking for right now. But since it's a topic that is very close to our heart, we said, okay, we will just do it by ourselves. We will run the company with our own money. And we've been doing this already like less than a year. We are bootstrapped, and we are kind of funding ourselves with our own money, but also with like public funding, which is actually also very helpful.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. I think we will discuss later that track. Yeah, because it's a good one. Yeah.
For us, it was never really a question. So we never were like, oh, I wish we would like raise around or something. The reason being, I think me and my co-founder Cyril, which also happens to be my brother-in-law, we decided that like, since we are both technical, I'm a product designer by trade, he's a software engineer, we didn't really need any outside funding. We could just like literally open our computer, start hacking away, and like a ton of open source, a ton of like free credit. What we needed something was just a bit of hosting that cost like $20 a month or something, and you can run or bootstrap a company up to like 100K easily. And so we really never saw that reason why. We saw all the disadvantages, right? Dilution, the loss of maybe ownership and like decision making. And so once we got started on this track, it became apparent that like, yeah, that's the best. That's so much better. I'm not against funding either. I think it's a nice vehicle, and it can have value at a certain point. So for example, now Improv MX has crossed like a threshold where we are a real company, we have employees, we are running into operational challenges like, the scale of the business, we have 100,000 users, we are forwarding almost 1 million emails a day. And so this is when we are asking ourselves, okay, do we want to continue bootstrapping this, or like maybe a cash infusion would be helping us get to the next phase.
Right.
But so far, we're like, nope. We value the freedom too much.
Yeah. What about you?
Well, I can just follow on from those points because I recognize all of that. And I think that's the question that you ask yourself if you're thinking about taking on investment, which is what would you spend the money on? And so kind of controversial point here, had I known what I was doing, I would never have bootstrapped You Can Book Me. It was absolutely mad. It took us twice as long as it should have done. We made loads of mistakes because of our lack of experience. It was... we launched You Can Book Me in 2011, so it's obviously more than 10 years ago. And had I known what I know now, we absolutely would have taken funding. So, because I would have known what to spend the money on. So in a sense, bootstrapping is about betting yourself about what you think your competences are. So for us, if somebody had given us £1 million, we would have wasted it. We'd have spent it. We'd have shared the ownership of our company, probably wasted the money, gone in odd directions, not had the right advice, and maybe burnt to the ground. And that was the risk of taking on money. So instead, we just had this view, which was we've just got to we've got to find our own way, because it's easier for us to solve problems which are immediately in front of us, and we have a very high level of information about that problem and a reasonable amount of competence to solve them, rather than think about taking on £1 million and doing a 2-year plan when we didn't really have as much context. I think the situation now is very different. I think that the information available to people, as Antoine was saying, as a developer, you can spool up a product pretty quickly. I'm not a developer, but it seems to me like fairly, straightforward kind of stuff. There's libraries, there's no-code solutions, there's APIs, there's a whole load of stuff you can stitch together to get MVPs up and running and showing what that kind of product market fit or customer interest is going to look like. And at that point, it's just a business model. It's just a business plan. And if you know what you're doing and you want to accelerate and go fast and you're not going to waste the money, I don't see that bootstrapping is necessarily an ideologically good choice. It's just a model. What's more important is your knowledge and information and competence at the time.
Wow, we can wrap this up, I think. That was
3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, I'm just saying.
Okay, Julian, what about you?
Totally agree what Bridget said, but maybe also take into account, why do you want to start a company? For us, for example, I used to work in a bigger company before we started Tower. And for us, the idea was we wanted to build a work environment where we enjoyed working, no politics, no bullshit, have a respectful work culture. And with that, we automatically thought, okay, if we take on investment, there's this third party which is going to have a say. So that's the way we started. But again, I'm also not against VC. I think there are valid cases for both. You just have to decide on your own. And there are enough examples where companies started bootstrapped and then raised a fund when they needed the additional money. GitHub, for example, right? They scaled the first 4.5, 5 years. They bootstrapped. Then they raised the biggest Series A back then, and because they really wanted to move into the enterprise space. So just because you start bootstrap doesn't mean you have to stay a bootstrap business.
True. And about the unsexy business, I mean, it stays unsexy for this long, and then you become profitable, and then it's very sexy for VCs, obviously. But another point to Antoine and Bridget about like whipping up an MVP and like just getting going. Another question for the audience: how many of you created their MVPs and just threw them away? Anybody? How many MVPs in the trash?
How many have thought about it as well?
Right?
We've all thought about, an
We've
app.
all thought about it.
Everybody's got an app.
Everybody's got an app. What was the biggest concern? What was it? Marketing? Selling? What is it? Time. Okay. Winning it with a full-time job? Okay.
Yeah, I think that's completely valid.
You should come tomorrow.
Right? He has the time turner. He'll share.
I think that the danger of bootstrapping a business is that you become too successful. You get customers, they give you money, and they require your time. It's an obligation. It's a contract. So don't start an app, start selling it, unless you're prepared to basically interact with customers and provide them with a service. So ultimately, fundamentally, it's not about the thing that the great idea that you have or how good you are. I mean, if you want to do that, be an artist and just, create beautiful pieces of art. But if you actually want to run a business, you're interacting with other people and you're selling something to them. So ultimately, your business relies on your relationship with customers, and that's what becomes an obligation and a loyalty, and that's what can keep things going for a very long time. Certainly has with us.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we started talking about the cons of bootstrapping, right, Bridget? You said you would absolutely not do it again.
Mad.
Yeah, so maybe let's just continue that way, because like bootstrapping is the new sexy of SaaS, right? Everyone's talking about it. Like if you raise the funds, you haven't suffered enough to be called successful. So what could be, what's so difficult about it?
Okay, so maybe I can start.
Sure.
I talked about it as well to Bridget earlier, and for us right now is actually, since we're a marketplace, we need to scale up, and since we're bootstrapped, it's a bit harder on the cash side, and we need to do a lot of marketing, and marketing is pretty expensive. So that was a big challenge for us, kind of coming up with the funds to really do marketing that works and reaches the people that we want to reach. But, we found a way to do that now. We got pretty nice funding, so we're good to go to do marketing now. So, yeah.
All right, so there you go. Marketing is expensive, yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely one. I can see two things. So for Improv MX, just as I shared a bit earlier, we are in that space, maybe a bit like GitHub did, although orders of magnitude smaller, where we want to go a little bit into enterprise because this is what makes sense for the business at the moment. But it's really hard as a bootstrap company. So enterprise customers, they want that you are SOC 2 compliant and do all these crazy things, and that you have a dedicated account manager, etc. They are ready to pay for it. That's great, but how do we bridge that gap so that we can build it? Mm-hmm. And it would take a few months or maybe even years, so that we can sell it. And so that's where it's really hard to just keep infusing the cash from the profits from our own revenue. To take that next step. So yeah, that's one of the things. And for Fernand, it's just my co-founder and myself. We're not pulling resources from Improv MX onto it. So it's just really the two of us. We have this idea of we want to keep intentionally small because also for many reasons, it's kind of the philosophy of the business where any customer support tool that launched in the past kind of became this big behemoth of let's keep adding features and let's keep raising the price as well. We would like to keep intentionally small also in the way that a company is structured. But one thing that we've seen from the competitors that I've mentioned in this modern SaaS space, they all have cool funding rounds with other founders from this other cool modern SaaS space. And this is insanely valuable because this does your marketing as well. You're able to say, well, look, the founder of whatever, Versal, or Andrew Wilkinson from Tiny, or Tim Schumacher from SaaS Group, or whatever. Once you have those names, it's so much easier because those people, they are interested in your success as well because, they're involved financially. So they will be also pushing for you and being your brand ambassadors. When you're a bootstrapper, you're kind of on your own. Okay, no one cares about my success. You have to oh, thank you. So trying to build this incentive system, I think is just really worth it. Plus all the lessons and the guidance that those people could share. So two different things that we don't have now.
All right, Bridget.
Well, I would say that bootstrapping is hard, but everything is hard. Running a business is hard. So I don't think you can get away from... There's no easy option here. And at the end of the day, it comes down to the same thing, which is what I said before. Is a customer going to give you money for something? Ultimately, that's also what VCs are interested in. So there's no getting away with it. When I meant it was mad for us to bootstrap You Can Book Me is it because it's freemium. So if any of you haven't watched it, watch the Gail Goodman's the long slow slamp. I can't even say it. The long slow ramp of SaaS death. I mean, what a name for a conference talk. But she was the CEO and founder of Constant Contact, which is a small business email marketing tool, obviously worth billions now. And it took her a long time to get that SaaS product up and running to a point where it was sort of unicorn status. And for You Can Book Me, freemium meant that vast majority of people who use our tool are free. They're not giving us any money. So to bootstrap it, we weren't profitable for the first 6 years. So we grew very fast. We made a lot of cash up front, but we weren't profitable. And that's hard. So I would say as well, the bootstrapping thing now that is coming in because of the fracture in the tech sector the last couple of years, it's more focused on profitability because the runways are running out and people are losing their jobs. So really, bootstrappers, by virtue of the fact that they have to make a profit, suddenly become this really good option. I don't think it's really got anything to do with the ownership of the company. It's to do with the fact that you're making money off the customers that you're selling to. And we've been doing that since 2016, 17, and we had to. And so the long, slow ramp to get there was hard. Once you start making money, you're in a position where, you can weather these kind of shocks to the system like the pandemic and, as I said, the kind of the SaaS buying bubble, which you can get caught up in that world and you can sort of feel a lot of validation from your community because everybody knows about you. But I've just come back last week. I was in California. I was in SaaStr, Jason Lemkin's, big SaaS conference in San Francisco. And I actually felt I was speaking on the Bootstrap stage, so I felt like I was in this kind of underground movement, sort of just like really talking about these sort of, things like making money and stuff. The rest of the people in SaaStr are all really excited, a really energized community, but they're lovely people, don't get me wrong, but the community is not a real community. Whereas I know that the people that use our scheduling tool are small businesses across North America, absolutely thousands of customers in Europe, in the UK and Australia, they're not going to SaaStr. They're not looking at TechCrunch. And I think if you have a real business, you should get to know your real customers. And if you're a developer and you've built something which is a fantastic tool for developers, I would say it doesn't matter who else is out there, who hasn't heard of you or what kind of coverage you're getting, because you've got a relationship with the people that you're selling to. And that can be fairly small scale, and it can definitely be bootstrapped to the point of profitability so that you're getting an income. And that's really your first milestone of what you're trying to achieve. And that is hard. That just getting to that point is a triumph. And it stays hard. All of it's really hard. So...
yeah, absolutely.
Great pep talk.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Talking about incredible tools for developers, Julian. So that's your cue.
Yes. One skill you have to learn quickly is to say no. I think, but that's actually the beauty of bootstrapping, that you really have to focus. And I guess if we would have raised money, then we could have, sponsored these conferences, do these exciting marketing campaigns. The first solution would probably always be to hire somebody to solve an issue, and here you really have to stay frugal and focus, and have to learn to say no constantly to not lose track.
Yeah, that's for sure. Okay, so that's what we came here to discuss, right? Different stages of bootstrapping, like what to do there. So I want to know, does it get easier when you grow as a bootstrap company? Does it get harder? What do you do? Like, is it that difficult to start as a bootstrap company, or it's harder to scale? So I think you're the youngest.
We're the youngest, and I guess we're right now at the Valley of Tears. I don't know. But hearing all of you, I guess it will get better, but it will still stay hard, as having a business will always be. So Yeah, I guess that's our stage, but it's okay. It's very exciting to see. Also, that's what Julian said. Like, we are saying no a lot of times, actually, because a lot of our customers come to us and they ask us, "Can we have this? Can we need this? And if we would have that, that would be so cool, and it would make things so much easier." And we have a long list, in our backlog of things that we want to include. And we learn a lot about it, and we listen to our customers and we talk with them constantly to really make sure that our product is what they want and what they need. And that's also the beauty about bootstrapping, I guess, because we don't have the side of the VCs or any investors asking us, to kind of put up some milestones that fit their kind of investment strategy to kind of have an exit, I don't know, in like 1, 2, 3 years that works for them. But we really can focus on our product and what matters to us. Yeah.
Right. I would assume that's really hard to say no at that stage because they're asking for it. Like, is there more money there? Can we wing it?
Yeah, especially for me, it was also hard because like coming from the corporate world, it was really hard for me to say no. Like, I worked as a consultant, and if the client comes to you and they want something from you, you give it to them.
Right. You
like,
never say no.
Like, there's no way you say no. So it was a learning curve for me, but it is worth it. So yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think a funny thing around customers asking you for features or special things, and then like, I swear, we just need this thing, and like we upgrade, like instant upgrade for sure. No, it doesn't work like this. Like, from my experience, maybe 20% of those people actually end up buying. Because if they miss something at the beginning, then your relationship, like this whole sales cycle, is already kind of disturbed with something, and it's gonna be very, very hard to anyway like transform them and convert them. So I think you should just focus on what you have right now, like market it the right way, and then the product investment, the future investments, don't necessarily have to be tied to like, oh, we have to please this customer, otherwise they will just like churn or like whatever. Of course, it's a balance, right? You don't want to also take this advice for like, okay, I should just not listen to my customers. So always try to balance those two. In terms of what's hard, everything is hard. Everything, always.
Okay.
I wouldn't say necessarily that the starting is hard, especially for us as like tech founders. We are like combining with my co-founder exactly the set of skills that is required to put something or a good product on its feet, but we had to learn how to put a good company on their feet. Like, a product is not a company. I think you told that really well earlier, and that's where it was way more challenging for us because we didn't go to business school or anything like this. So things like accounting, legal, any kind of like financial planning and strategy, how to allocate funds. We've had 2 exits in the past, and so we had suddenly a big amount of money on our account, our business account, and we're like, okay, well, what should we do with this now? Like, no one told us about this.
I think there's got a lot of people who could help you there.
Yeah. So it's really more about what you don't know and how you adapt to those situations, in my opinion.
Right. I just realized you were like a classical example of Basecamp situation with their small teams, a designer and a programmer. I was talking to Jason Fried about it, and I was like, that's cool. Like, you have a programmer and designer, you can whip up a product, but why not? Isn't it just better to have like a programmer and a marketer there, because you ultimately have to sell it? And they're a little bit bigger, so they have a marketer just a little bit above that level. But I think that's just how it is for a lot of developers. You just have to deal with it. Bridget.
I'm very lucky this conference because I'm here with my co-founder Keith, who's the CTO. Here he is. He's come to find out how I run the business. He's responsible for, I don't know, Keith, probably building about 20 products or something, spooling them up. So he's the man to talk to about commercially irrelevant products that are really good. But I think that, and And what I mean by that is it's like it's incredibly, you can get very passionate about solving a problem, but that's not the same thing as can we make a business out of it. And between me and Keith, we supervise in some ways the production of a whole load of products that we could get passionate about. They were really interesting problems. But were we interested sufficiently to market them and get customers and build a business and a company out of it? And the answer was no. So really, had You Can Book Me not come along and given us that kind of traction that we were looking for as bootstrappers, we'd still just be running a whole load of hobbyist sort of products, I imagine. Keith built products for house buying. You know, you can see in our domestic life, it was sort of, we've got to buy a house, let's write an app. You know, a friend of ours are getting married, they want to raise money for their honeymoon, let's write an app. You know, we do all sorts of things. And so I would say that I would say, I wasn't the one writing the products, but it's reasonably easy if you've identified a problem and you're a programmer to do something which is going to spool that up into life. Then the key questions you've got is, are you really passionate about that problem? Is that a problem a meaningful thing? Is that something you can describe to somebody else and get excited about? More importantly, if somebody's going to give you money, how easy is it to get more of those customers? So, for example, we built a tool called Tickboxer, which is a survey building tool, which was a fantastic product, very passionate about it. And Keith had 2 users, myself, when I was working in local government, and Intelligent Space, which was a transport consultancy. And we were Intelligent Space and me, we loved the product. But the fact is, like, to get more people to use this and to pay for it, we're going to have to market it. And we're not marketers. We didn't have any skills or knowledge about how to do it. And so it was a kind of like, no, this is going to be quite hard to do. And whereas with what we've got now, which is a scheduling tool, we're product-led growth. So we get word-of-mouth referrals, essentially, into the tool. But we also can get really behind the product, which is finding a time for people to meet. It's a really meaningful problem to try to solve. We solve it all the time using the tool ourselves. And so it's amazing that for the longevity of we've been doing it, we're still obsessed with online scheduling. And I think that if you're thinking about bootstrapping your own product, you have to look at it and don't just look at like, is this a money spinner? Or can I flip this in 3 years? Or will I be able to spool this up and basically flog it to people who I don't care about? I think if you're thinking like that, you're probably not in it for the right reasons or for the long haul, because you have to, it's a bit like deciding to do an extension on your house. You've got to triple the budget and triple the timeline and then double that again, to get any kind of reward or expectation out of it. So you've got to be really committed to it and know I can let this run and I'm still going to be here in 10 years' time caring about it. Whereas there was other things that we did which we just weren't that into. So I would say easy to start lots of things, but only commit to the thing that you know you are going to really love.
Thank you. I think that's the best advice there is, right? Well, Julian?
Coming back to your question, if it becomes easier, I don't think it ever gets easier. You're just facing different challenges.
So you just solved it.
At every stage.
Whatever.
10 years later.
You initially, get your first customers, traction, but you're always facing challenges. Suddenly you have a corporate showing up. They want a purchase order. Never heard of a purchase order before back then. Okay, you have to figure these things out. Then when you suddenly have the feeling you're now like in smooth water, everything is going fine. There's a new competitor popping up, maybe somebody leaving from your team. So you also need to be prepared. It's this typical, that's a marathon, not a sprint scenario too. There are always these exceptions that are done in the press, like these overnight successes and so on. But behind the scenes, there will be a lot of stress and struggle. And so only do it if you like challenges on a constant basis.
True. I talked to a lot of founders on the podcast about overnight successes. And then we get to talking and they were like, there were 12 years before that. Okay, let's talk about that maybe. But I think we're actually supposed to have a bit of a Q&A. And because I don't have the time, I could go on for a while. Any questions? Yes, please.
Thank you for sharing the experiences. Can you hear me?
Yeah, maybe a little louder. And yeah.
Hi, my name is Praveen. Thank you for sharing your experiences. Could you each maybe tell us how you got your first 10 customers and then the next 100 customers, if you got to 100?
Okay.
I could take that.
Sure.
So actually, we didn't start Improv MX from scratch. It was a product we were using already. It was really, really minimalistic. It was just a landing page with 2 input fields. One was for your domain name. One was for the redirection email you wanted this to send to. So it was just catch-all email address. And then you'd go and hit submit. It would register that in the database. And then you'd have to go and change your DNS, like MX, mail exchange settings. Once you did that, you had no way to change it. You could go ahead and register, like I could register for You Can Book Me, and then if you would go and try to use the product, you just couldn't. So obviously it was a bit minimalistic, but we saw, oh, well, this is really working. Like people are using it. It has a big, like good reception on the internet. Like people are recommending it like everywhere. And so we thought, okay, let's just reach out to the founder and see maybe there's an option to do something here. And this is when we already exited 2 of the previous companies, and so we had a bit of cash. And we were like, okay, let's see. It turned out we were able to buy it for like 5 or 6K, $5,000. It was really not much, because just like it was not monetized at all. It was really small, and that founder, the initial founder, was kind of thinking already to get rid of it because it got scaled. It scaled until a point where it was just seeing the problems. It was a bunch of abuse, and like it was really hard for him to keep up with email deliverability, and it was just costing him money. So at the end of the day, we were like, oh, do you want money for that thing that cost you money? I'm like, sure, that's great. I was thinking to kill it anyway. And so this is how we got our first customer, because when we acquired it, we've redesigned it from scratch, threw away all the code, but we had that domain, we had all the traffic, the word of mouth, the SEO, all of this was just coming for free. And so once we released it, I think we started to get our first customers day one. We've built a lot of like upsell mechanisms, right, directly in the product. Nice email flow to try to educate and stuff. So like we try to build that machine to go from free to premium, because it's a freemium product. But I think the first day we had like 10 customers, the next day we had 100, the week later we had 1,000, etc.
You're not making it easier for people, Antoine.
But of course it's a bit of a different story. Also the price point is not big. So I think it was $9 a month or 90 a year. But in the beginning, it went like this, and then it, of course, stabilized, still on an upward trajectory. But like, there was all these people that were like just craving for a better option. They were using it already. They were like, "Oh, that's so much better. Yeah, sure, take my $9. Like, that's totally fine."
How old was the product when you bought it?
I think it was just a couple years old, 2-3 years.
Okay, so a couple years you grind, then you find your first customer.
Maybe to add to that, like we handpicked our first users. So we really looked, okay, who was talking about Git back then at conferences, blogging about it. Also, which companies would we like to get our foot in? And then I just emailed them back then from my personal Gmail account. And if you have a interesting product, like to also find is the product market fit, especially if you have a developer tool, the developer community is an actual community. People are very, get very excited and supportive, and that really helped us. And then we looked at, okay, which markets do we want to be in? Do we also want to have, when we kick off customers in Brazil, let's say, not only the most obvious market. And so we pretty much scaled to like the first 1,000 beta users back then manually, and then pretty much asked them to invite their network, their colleagues, and so on, and then it took off.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions? Sure, go ahead.
Thank you very much for your input. And I really love the analogy, Bridget, for building the house. It takes at least 3 times the time you expected it. So I know what you're talking about. My question is, when you're talking about bootstrapping, you now highlighted the pros and cons of bootstrapping. When we are talking about funding, what is your experience when you get in somebody who gives you money? Do they really want to then pull the product in a direction you didn't want to, or did you have any problems with taking external money already?
Well, I can share what we're still 100% bootstrapped. So our company is still owned 100% by me and Keith. But now there's a much higher chance that we would consider funding than we did before. And that's because what we were talking about before, about this early adopting phase of customers, it's incredibly valuable to have those conversations with customers. They're always telling you, and they are very opinionated about what they want. But that is the agile, lean methodology right there. So Keith spent the first 2 years building When Is Good, and then You Can Book Me, entirely based on conversations with customers. So our early stages of iteration were led by customers. And I think that if we'd taken on funding, that could have got distorted quite significantly. Whereas now, if we took on funding, it would be much more about growth and marketing. It would be much more about business development, which is a much more known thing. We've got our product. Our product's quite old now in many ways. So we have a mature product that doesn't require that same early stage MVP thing. And the thing about funding at the beginning is if you've got a very clear idea about what it is that you want to build, and somebody comes along and wants to give you the money to pay your rent for a couple of years, that's a great ball. Have a ball. Take their money, pay your rent for a few years, build the product, have a go. But the acceleration that the funder is going to expect because of their money is going to send you off in a particular direction, which might indeed be the one that you want. Or indeed, I actually think that the marketplace model, that is sort of only going to reach critical mass at a certain number of buyers and sellers, that is often attracts funding because it's very hard to bootstrap that from the beginning. So it's really more to do with what is going to distort your business plan than is it a good or a bad idea in the first place. And if we took funding now, it would be for such a different category of activity than it would have been at the beginning.
Right, makes sense. Thank you, Bridget. We can maybe take one more. Yeah? Do we have a minute? Sure.
Hey, I'm so happy for all of you that you're successful. And one of the things that holds me back is when would I know that I'm not going to be successful, and how should I know when to exit? Kind of thinking that you put in more of your money, you have a side hustle, you take all your savings, put that into it, and then all of a sudden you realize you have done this for 10 years and there's really nothing out of it.
Just a few words on this, because it's kind of part of my talk tomorrow. I think maybe you should just not take all this risk in the first place, which is kind of the best advantage of bootstrapping. If you have to put like your house on bail or something, like that's bad. Don't do that. If you have to break up with your girlfriend, divorce, not see your kid's birthday and stuff, don't do that. Why? Right? Like, it's fine. You're not gonna change the world probably, or if you do, it's not by missing your kids' birthdays or whatever. Yeah, I would say you can do a lot more than you think by keeping your day job or whatever works for you, if you're contracting, whatever, and just like trying to build that MVP or a most valuable, lovable product, I would say, and taking it from there, and then start charging for it if you can. Once you start charging, start making money, and then you can invest that. And once you start making money, it means that it's kind of working. But yeah, I've had this thing a couple of times before, because we've launched maybe 20 products, 30 maybe, 40.
We should have started with that.
Exactly. And so I know failure much more than I know success. I think if you look at my success rate, is something like 5 to 10%. It's really low. I know a lot about like commercially, what did you say, commercially irrelevant products. for sure. And so you know, right? There is this thing of product market fit. And at some point, it's just like every conversation you have, exactly. Every conversation you have with customers is like, yeah. Whereas, for example, with Fernand, I'm doing product demos myself, and people are like enthusiastic about it. I'm like, yeah, we're really onto something. They are like, wow, you know, when you get this aha moment, then you kind of know you feel it, I'd say.
Just to add to that, I think you know when what you have to see in a business is that your ability to get the first customer is going to be hard, but you need to see an exponential decrease in the amount of time and effort it takes you to get to your first 10, then your first 100, then your first 1,000. If it is taking you the same amount of time to get your 100th customer as to get your first customer, you're probably not in a business which is, unless you're charging £1 million a customer, I think. But, you know, you've got to see an optimized route to doubling and tripling the number of customers that you have. And if you haven't got that, if you don't see that path, then I would critically look at your business plan.
Okay. Well, thank you. I don't think we have more time for this. I would go on still. But thank you so much for being here. Again, pick up your postcards, keep it, send it to a friend. I don't know. Yeah, if you need to talk to anybody of the speakers, or, you know, sometime in the future sell to SaaS Group, here we are. But yeah, can we do what is it? Oscar's selfie?